All right, so welcome to a very special international edition of Mandate Mondays. This week we are in Ireland at the Jameson Distillery. Jameson was kind enough to give us a private tour walking through the history of John Jameson and the old distillery.
So every year we welcome now in excess of 280,000 visitors a year, and of course our numbers of visitors keep going up year on year on. Now we're going to be closing of course for a few months later on this year for a refurbishment, and that will probably actually lead to even more people coming through in 2017.
Now our first stop on the tour is in the basement.
We've actually been making whiskey on this site, my God, since 1780. And it was John Jameson when he established his distillery right here.
First, grains were collected and carried up through numerous flights of stairs.
He carried the sacks on his back up and down the stairs. There were 5 flights of stairs, and each sack of barley weighed 220 pounds.
Next, we soak the grains for 2 days. Then, they're laid out in a hot, humid room where we meet Seamus, who is here rotating the grains to trick them into germinating.
Now, the second part, we have to dry the germinating grains, and a big difference between Jameson and a lot of Scottish whiskies now emerges. Within the fires when making the malt for Jameson, we use a smokeless fuel.
Once the grains are dried, they're brought to the mill where they're ground into grist. Next, we add the grist and water into the mash tun. This is where the beaters mash the mixture to dissolve the natural sugars that were made during the malting process.
After the mashing process, we have our liquid full of sugar taken from the mash tun, and it's pumped in here. When it comes in here, we now add in some yeast, and then we leave the liquid to ferment for about 60 hours.
Over the next 60 hours, the yeast starts turning the sugar into alcohol. Cleaning these washbacks was no easy task. Someone would be lowered into the washback, which typically were 50 feet high, and it would take a whole shift to clean. Next, we move into the distillation process where the mixture is heated to 140 degrees, which is hot enough to boil alcohol, but not water. The alcohol steam is then collected and converted back into a liquid in the still. This process is done 2 more times for a triple distilled whiskey, which lands it at about 160 proof.
Even for us Irish, it's down on the high side. It's so high, we now have to add in water. And the water that we added today has been purified. It's deionized water. We added deionized water, the alcohol content is diluted, and it drops down to about 124 proof.
Now the whiskey is ready to be aged in a barrel, but not just any barrel.
Kevin is our master of wood. Kevin's job is to ensure that only the finest barrels are actually used to mature Jameson. We then have the likes of Ger Buckley. Now Ger, he's our master cooper, and Ger and his team maintain the 1.5 million barrels that we actually have in our warehouses. But it's now Billy Layton's time to shine, and Billy is our master blender. And Billy's job is to take the component parts, combine them in the correct proportions to actually make our whiskies. Now if you like any of our whiskies, and if you buy a bottle of today and another bottle in 5 years or in 10 years time, if Billy has done his job correctly, which by the way he always does, the whiskey will have the exact same and the correct smell tasting.
Last but not least, one of the most important parts of the tour, we get to taste the whiskey. Here's where we got to compare the Jameson to Jim Beam and Johnny Walker. So thank you so much to the Jameson Distillery. We had a fantastic tour here. We had some fantastic drinks. Everyone, thank you for joining us. This was an absolute fantastic time for our first international episode.
Ganja!
That's works.
That's a wrap. That's a wrap.